Hey guys, so this is episode 2. We've made some changes since the last update, and these were pretty dramatic, but we're still at the cusp for before making some major changes, like I was discussing in the last episode. So for this episode, we expanded from a 20 by 20 grid to a 64 by 64 grid. So it's a dramatic increase. One of the things I found out when I expanded it to 64 by 64, I had like an auto fit feature, or it was done to auto fit that 2020 grid into the screen, into the browser window, so that everything showed. Well, this made all the squares really small, and it's very hard to see. And so it was just a quick fix to have that implemented to where it was not auto fitted. And then when that was done, I then also added the ability to left click and drag so we can move around the map and look at what's happening. Okay, one of the other changes we did is I noticed that the vertical axis, the z-axis for the blocks, was not set to a 1:1 to 1 ratio. So your XY, you had the perfect square in this isometric view, but the up down was compressed, and so we made a modification of that to where then I had a 1:1. So you would have on the old map that we were looking at a block that was basically 10f10 would be a perfect cube, and we weren't getting that with the old map, but we get it now with the new map. Okay, let's see. So for the terrain feature, I decided to start off with some smooth rolling hills. We want just a gradual change, nothing dramatic, but I wanted to get enough differentiation that we would then be able to get different values on these blocks to see if the new hydrology model that we've been putting in place would have some stuff that would start forming like static water points. And we'll click through. I've kicked off a rain event because my grass is drying out. I've run several cycles to start growing grass, to start growing trees. So these are grass growing on top of the squares, and these over here are trees. The bigger, darker trees are mature trees, and these are younger trees that are growing, and they are spreading. But these are all working underneath the old model for water. So they're consuming water the old way. They're expanding based on some old rules that we'll be rewriting as we go forward. But I am getting, and then the water itself is flowing under the old rules and not using the new rules. But it still flows, and it should flow. It was a quick hack, but it does have some correlation of how the new rules will take effect as well, because I was always looking at the water to go to the next lowest spot adjacent to its neighbor if it was ready to overflow. And so with these rain events, you can see that water's building up, and sometimes you can see some of the movements at times that it's going downhill one click at a time, as long as there's enough water, because the absorption rates and all that are all totally different. We'll be rewriting all that going forward. We had another heavy rain event. So one of the areas, if you look, it's kind of hard to tell. You have a hill that goes down, but there's also another gradient here that goes down and flows, and we don't have things flowing off the map. And so I can get water to build up here at times. I think right here. So I've been monitoring. I can sometimes get it up to like 10 surface water. So it's like a full cube of water is collecting here. If the rain's heavy enough over that area for a certain period of time, and water flows down into it. Even with these old rules, it'll be going away. And if you look at the flow of climate accumulation, it's a 2. I can click to different pieces of the map. I can get flow accumulation is 9. The channel water is 141. I can get a drainage direction, and the channel class is intermittent. Now I've been able to find a few cubes where my channel class rates as a river, but it's like a 1x1 cube that's rating as a river, and so we don't have a consistent channeling at this point. But this is what the testing was for. So I'm actually getting different kinds of water things. It's recording at different levels. As I click across, I can see changes on the new water variables. And so that's where I was talking about we're going to let the land shape the flow of the water, but then at the same time the water will also shape the land. And between these two, you'll get a stabilizing force. I noticed, if you've ever played Dwarf Fortress, you will have seen that when it's creating the worlds, it like establishes these river structures and erosion, and that's part of the land shaping the water flow, but then the water flow shapes the land, and then as the land is shaped by the water, you start getting these permanent channels that then become your rivers. So you have things that could be rivers, but you need to shape it and see if that river continues, and rivers should eventually continue and go to the sea. And so it just takes a lot of water and a lot of land shaping. And so that will be some of the next things that we do. So one of the things I wanted to show you is, if I look here, this is one of the high points. And if I look, this is like 11, almost 12 cubes high. And then if you go down to the bottom here, it's base elevation of 26. So it's a little over 2 cubes, not quite 3 cubes high from the base. So I'm starting everything at the bottom. And in the world of Minecraft, this would have been 3 blocks from bedrock, and then you're at 17 blocks from bedrock up at the top. And if I scroll over here, you get a better idea. So right now we're not building individual blocks and stacking them. I'm just using a single terrain block, because what we're concerned with right now is just surface flow, and we're not worried about water as it soaks in and builds water tables to where you can have springs and water popping up at different places, or you have marshes, wetlands, but that will all go into, like, if this turns into a wetland down here, then trees should only be able to grow down to a certain point before they stop growing because it's too wet. Just like trees can only grow if it rains above a certain amount. And so we're going to let the terrain and the water and the temperatures dictate how things grow and where they grow. And I think that's all we'll do for this episode. It's a big dramatic change, and the computation time of the agent to make all these changes was probably maybe 10 minutes total. I've spent more time testing and running the simulation to watch how things progress than the actual time it was required for an agent to code. So right now, it's one of the benefits, and I haven't had any errors, and things seem to be working the first time. The only thing was like the initial time I plugged in the formula, it was between 1 meters and 3 meters, and there just wasn't enough differentiation, so that's why I bumped it up to 20 meters as a maximum height to where I could get some features. And if you want to see the code, this is the code that the agent is using. No, it's not actual code, but this is the formula it's using to create the smoothing hills. A lot of this stuff is just out there in the public domain now. So whatever Minecraft is using specialized terrain models to build its dramatic landscapes, this would be something that would be part of like the Minecraft, but they've modified and have more specials, because they wanted to make it more compact. Well, I'm looking at making a big world that looks more reasonable and realistic. Okay, so I think I'll cut it off right there. I'll see you next time.